Some of my longtime viewers may remember this meme I posted a while ago. Unsurprisingly, the memes comment sections on Facebook and Reddit got filled with hates towards Red Alert 3's economy system. I said unsurprising because Red Alert 3's resource collection method is one of the reasons most CNC fans like to bring up on why they dislike the game. Way before that, I actually wrote a long Facebook post in response to our criticism against Red Alert 3's economy system, and got entirely positive feedbacks from those intellectuals who took the time to read all that. Fast forward to a community vote a bit earlier. You guys actually wanted to see this analysis video over all those other tempting options, so let's go right for it! If you didn't know, I'm actually a game designer here. This video is gonna be so easy to make because I'm not gonna be spending hundreds of hours on researching. So our question here is, which economy system is better? The widespread war fields in Red Alert 2, or the static singular war nodes in Red Alert 3? I'll give it the short answer. Red Alert 2's is better. It's just more enjoyable to most fans. More on that later, but first off, let's go over the advantages of Red Alert 3's design. When you build a game, you are essentially creating an experience for the players, and every aspect of your game should be designed around enhancing that experience. This is why we have genres that are defined by the type of experience they offer, such as horror, action, and casual. When EA got started on Red Alert 3, they wanted to make something to compete with StarCraft. They wanted the CNC franchise to secure a spot in the esports scene, and the result was a highly competitive game. If you haven't played Red Alert 3 online, you really haven't played the game. And this decision itself could have been a huge mistake, given that the majority of the fanbase are casual players. Anyhow, Red Alert 3's dev's main goal was to make a competitively engaging game, and the economy system, as a vital part of every RTS ever, is something they'd invest a lot of time and effort on. First off, the war node resource system is very simplistic and easy to understand. If you watch a commentary of an RE3 match, you'd hear things like Dima has already finished his third refinery, while Lictor was sitting on 2 refs this whole time. Compare this to Zane has 14 harvesters while Andy has, let's see here, 11. Says no RE2 commentator ever. Red Alert 3's game state is very straightforward to both players and spectators, as clearly indicated by how many war nodes each player currently mines from. Any audience at any point during a match can easily compare each player's economic states. In Red Alert 3, there is no such thing as long-distance mining. A player has to spend quite some effort and a fortune in order to expand to a new war node. This really challenges the player's risk assessments, investments, and base expansion skills. Many competitive RTS games do this a lot less successfully. Upon expanding to numerous war nodes spread across the map, you must manage multiple mini-expansions at the same time. This provides you with many offensive and defensive options, depending on whatever situation you're in, and gives the game way higher of a skill requirements. And fun as it is in campaigns, turtling isn't exactly entertaining in competitive gameplay. Red Alert 3's war node-based resource collection makes it impossible for you to heavily fortify each expansion and have money to secure new war nodes at the same time. Turtling doesn't work here. Speaking of potential trade-offs to base expansion, you got to realize that getting a new refinery in Red Alert 3 is a huge deal. Going from 2 refineries to 3 is a whopping 50% income increase. In the previous game, on the other hand, the economy difference is usually like, I have 12 harvesters while you have 10. The economic gap is often minimal. The fact that acquiring an additional refinery in Red Alert 3 makes a huge difference really contributes to the game's snowballing nature. In game design, casual games usually place an emphasis on catch-up mechanics. It's why family games like Mario Kart have the notorious Slow Shell, while party games like Murder Trivia let ghosts move faster during the final run. Catch-up mechanics ensure that everybody can have a good time, and no matter how far behind someone is, they will always have a chance to beat their higher skilled opponents. You're never out of it, even if you are a noob, because the game rewards you for losing. Competitive games tend to be the opposite. Here, winners win harder. Some would even say that if you lost an engineer early on, you've basically lost the entire battle, because losing that 500 credits would set you back in army production and expansion, so you fall further and further behind. Any tiny skill difference here can snowball into something massive. This is the design philosophy of competitive games. It prevents game sessions from dragging on for too long and incentivizes a high level of player interactions. Say, if getting an enemy refinery offline rewards you a noticeable lead, everybody would actively try to break into bases and harass harvesters. Snowballing makes any actions that take place meaningful, as they carry noticeable impacts. By the way, in Red Alert 2, your go-to strategy is likely to spam harvesters and generate income as fast as you can, which translates into a massive tank army for steamrolling your opponents. In Red Alert 3, however, you are confined to a limited number of war nodes, and each allows for only one harvester to operate. You end up with way smaller of an economy. With less resources at your disposal, how you choose to spend that money truly matters. This is why we have multiple well-established build orders, since every monetary decision you make comes with interesting trade-offs, as well as short and long-term consequences. It is also no surprise that with most rush builds, you always have just enough money to get out what you need at the right time. This is by the design of a carefully crafted economy system. Here, players also tend to scout constantly to make sure what they're building counters what their opponent has access to. When you get less resources, you want to make sure you're spending money on the right units. This gives all types of units, be it land, air, or sea, a place in the counter system. There wouldn't be an optimal strategy like tank spam. Instead, efficient resource management is a must, and people would employ a diverse variety of units that are right for the situation. Because you can't reliably mass eco early on in Red Alert 3, your reduced income results in a smaller, easier to manage army, not a single member of which is expendable. Having less units at your disposal ensures that every unit is extremely valuable and requires tremendous care to preserve. Let's take a typical tank engagement in Red Alert 2 as the example. Both players basically move their massive tank armies around while they auto-fire at each other, and the larger army usually comes on top. It's pretty cool. But now look at how a similar situation plays out in Red Alert 3, where armies are a lot smaller. Here I have 5 tsunami tanks, and that is already a pretty big tank army. I'm sending them towards Chris's base. Chris switched his armor tanks over to Leech Beam, which has longer range, to get an early damage advantage on me, so I decided to retrieve my damaged tsunami tank by reverse moving him away because tsunami tank's front armor is tougher than their back armor. I also activated its nano deflector to reduce damage and also regen HP at the same time. Meanwhile, one of Chris's armor tank has leached an additional cannon, so it has higher DPS. So I'm focus firing that one down first to cut down his firepower as fast as I can. Chris decided to remove his tank in a similar manner, but I managed to kill that tank before it was able to get away, and Chris also returned the favor to one of my tsunami tanks. So right now, we're both reverse moving damaged tanks away to preserve them. Because of Chris's army formation, my tanks would have way reduced off the fire rates if I committed to chasing the damaged tank, while Chris was doing the right thing to immediately switch target to my tanks that are still in combat. Now at a safe distance out of the battle, is able to switch to Leech Beam to recover health. So I took a bit of hits here, but I was able to pull back tanks whose shields have worn off back into the battle, and continue focus firing on his tanks, and because my tanks have approached them close enough, I was able to unleash discharge damage on his tanks. Finally, with the last 2 tanks remaining, I decided to push my tank forward for discharge, while Chris reverse moved his tank as an attempt to get away. My tank ended up winning, with a slither of health left. This is a whole other level of spectator value, thanks to a way less chaotic, more micro-intensive gameplay. I've heard a lot of objections on how Red Alert 3 Refinery spawns its own harvester, as some say it's just mining with extra steps. I think, however, that by keeping harvesters in the picture, the game offers players the choice between targeting the harvester to temporarily shut down the refinery, or take out the refinery altogether. To start off most Red Alert 2 games, players have to stabilize their economy by dedicating their production facilities to building extra harvesters. By removing this phase of the game, Red Alert 3 greatly reduced the downtime/wait time at the beginning of each game. Here, players immediately jump to unit production and start engaging each other in combats very early on, which speeds up the game's progression and is more fun for both players and spectators. Plus, since harvester production is separated from War Factory, you are no longer obliged to get a factory ASAP, and instead have way more build options available, such as going for an air opener. Finally, the RA3 economy system requires less micromanagement. Given the macro-intensive nature of the game, players get to maintain their sanity and focus more on combat and production. If you watch a Red Alert 2 Pro play online, you'd notice them constantly microing their harvesters to quickly teleport to prospective refineries, find an efficient mining path, or just to deliver some emergency cash. Here, managing your harvesters early on makes a difference, and that's not a good thing. Microwing harvesters is what we call busy work in game design. It is like shuffling cards before playing a game of poker. Shuffling cards isn't part of the card game, but it is an escapable duty players have to perform in order to play the game they actually came for. Harvester Micro, similarly, is rarely a core component of an RTS game loop. The fun part here is to clash your army against another's and crush their base. But in order to get there, you have to do the chore of microwing harvesters. That's unrelated to the actual gameplay. Because if you skip this boring part, you're forfeiting an economic advantage to your opponents for nothing. This element of busy work and even the player cost to learning Harvester Micro is completely eliminated from Red Alert 3, so players can hop right into the intense battles they wanted in the first place. When you look at Red Alert 3's economy system in detail, it is brilliant. Contrary to popular belief, Red Alert 3's devs didn't just slap the game together. Every mechanic of this game was intricately thought through. In theory, this level of complexity should make for one of the most compelling RTSs in existence. In practice though, many fans hated it. So what went wrong here? Simply put, Red Alert 3's resource collection method, as well as many other components of the game, completely defies the convention of the CNC franchise. As humans, we love conventions more than we'd want to admit. Once we've become accustomed to doing things one way, we'd be unwilling to invest energy into adopting new methods. In a sense, objective quality does not exist. Our brains instinctively consider whatever we're used to as preferable, while anything new and different faces opposition. This isn't a good example here. Disney Star Wars suck objectively, except for The Mandalorian and Clone Wars, they're pure awesomeness. A better example of convention is the QWERTY keyboard in front of you right now. The QWERTY layout traces its origin all the way back to the typewriters. It is way outdated. There are many keyboards like AZERTY, a layout hackers like to use, that implements far more scientific letter arrangements to maximize typing speed. But people don't like changes. I'm certainly not learning a new keyboard layout till the end of time. And imagine if a major company announced that their next laptop release would use AZERTY by default. Their sales would plummet. Thus, humanity will likely never break out of the typing conventions set up by typewriters centuries ago. Now look at every single Command & Conquer game we've had, be it Tiberium fields or ore fields. Resources were always placed out in the open for multiple harvesters to collect simultaneously. This is a convention established since the dawn of CNC in the 90s. And any longtime fan, myself included, would expect to collect resources in a similar manner when we got our hands on Red Alert 3. Hence the meme from the beginning we all fell prey to. Despite Red Alert 3's new economy system being theoretically superior, it drastically defied everything players were familiar with that came before. Ore nodes were a questionable design decision that the fanbase is unlikely to accept or enjoy. As a result, most fans would reject the game upon unpleasant first impressions like this, and never have the chance to fully appreciate the game's genius. It is almost sad that if I were ever given the chance to develop Red Alert 4, I would revert ore collection to the old way, because games were made to make people happy, and perhaps that's all that matters. But hey, that's just a theory. Get it? It's the type of nerdy game theory game designers write? Yeah, not quite. Back to Joe offline.
And Joe said something like, and that's when we see Seth. And then he stops all of a sudden. He's like, oh crap. I'm like, what? He said, we forgot to cast Seth. And I'm like, who's Seth? And he looks at me and goes, you could be Seth. Do you want to be Seth? So I said, yeah, sure. So that's how Seth started.